Two brothers separated when the Korean War began in 1950. One remained in the north while the other one went to the south. Both of them had the same Korean blood rushing through their veins. Both were from the same lineage, but their life took a different turn. It appeared as if both of them were living in a different world altogether. When the two of them reunited after 40 years in the 1990s, the one in the south was rich and had a decent living, whereas the north one was impoverished. The richer enjoyed the wonders of capitalism, while the poor lived under an authoritarian regime and endless suffering. While the poor economic conditions of North Korea have still not changed, there's a difference that economists are starting to see. South Korea, which saw breathtaking success, has started to fall into a vicious cycle of an economic trap. It might not be as bad as its rogue neighbour, but still, it would be devastating by South Korean standards. In today's video, we'll be exploring the hidden economic crisis of South Korea, including its demographic problems and what Samsung, LG and Hyundai have to do with this all. But first, we'd like you to support our work by subscribing to our channel. Before moving forward and deeply understanding this crisis, we want to take you back to the annals of history. Conflict in the Korean Peninsula. How did we get here? The division of Korea began when the Korean Peninsula was liberated from Japanese colonial rule. In 1945, the peninsula was divided into two occupation zones, with the Soviet Union occupying the northern half of the peninsula and the United States occupying the southern half. Thus, a Korean War erupted in the 1950s, which ended in an armistice and a temporary boundary between the two Korean states. Since then, peace in the peninsula has gone for good, and quite often, Kim Jong-un threatens to nuke South Korea, which is more or less dependent on Great America. Well, more on this bromance between South Korea and the US in a while. Adding salt to the wounds of North Koreans, they have been jealous of the rapid progress of their neighbours next door throughout these years. South versus North, an economic scorecard. So, when the Korean War ended in 1953, most South Koreans were illiterate, and its economy was just agriculture, and the future potential looked bleak. But then its economic policies were devised by Harvard and Princeton graduates who focused on transforming the economy from agriculture to industry. The way they did this was not by supporting small businesses, but by cherry-picking big investors and firms which they called Chaebols. Samsung, LG and Hyundai are some examples of Chaebols. We'll talk about Chaebols in detail in the video later, but what you want to understand is that this transformation was key to the economic miracle of this innocent Korean state. And as a result, they became one of the largest exporters of electronics, automobiles and other high-tech products in the world. Secondly, the Korean government invested in education and skilled labour, unlike the terrifying nuke holders of North Korea. Education for South Korea in STEM subjects was a must, whereas in North Korea, education was just secondary. You'll be amazed to know that the South Korea had a literacy rate of 99% in 2021, and this skilled human resource ultimately contributed to the economy. This boost made South Korea a hub for tech. Since then, South Korea has become one of the world's most dynamic and prosperous economies, driven by its advanced technology sector, innovative businesses, and dynamic cultural exports. For instance, in 2021, the revenue of Samsung Group's 15 biggest affiliated companies accounted for about 20.3% of South Korea's gross domestic product, that's GDP. These affiliates generated total revenue of around 418 trillion South Korean won that year, surpassing the 400 trillion mark for the first time in the group's history. Along with that, South Korea has become known for its cultural exports, particularly K-pop music and Korean dramas. The K-pop industry has exploded in popularity in recent years, with groups like BTS and Blackpink achieving global success. So what we're trying to tell you is that South Korea's export landscape is pretty much solid. But before moving towards the hidden crisis, we'd also like to highlight the import side of the economy. The import side. While South Korea is known for its advanced technology and innovative businesses, the country also relies heavily on imports for a number of key products, including food, fertilizer, and energy. In fact, 95% of its energy requirements are met through imports. The country imports a significant amount of crude oil, natural gas, and coal to power its homes, businesses, and industries. This has led to concerns about the country's energy security, as it's highly dependent on other countries for its energy needs. Well, definitely this energy crisis amid the Ukraine war has put a strain on the South Korean economy, but there's an elephant in the room that's causing more problems. The Chaebol. Chaebol is a unique feature of South Korea's business landscape. It's a large family-owned conglomerate that controls a diverse range of businesses and has significant influence over the country's economy. These conglomerates often have complex and opaque ownership structures and are known for their close relationships with the government. And Chaebols are owned, controlled, or managed by the same family dynasty, generally that of the group's founder. While for many years Hyundai, LG, Samsung, among others, have made the Korean miracle possible, but now things are changing. There's an interesting dilemma when it comes to Chaebol in South Korea. Altogether, they make up 85% of the country's GDP. Samsung has a share of around 40%, whereas LG and Hyundai make the rest. But Chaebols only make up 10% of the South Korean labor force. And now these giants have mastered ways to survive without boosting hiring. This means that South Korean labor jobs are in jeopardy. Most of the educated might end up being unemployed. College grads are in demand while jobs are in short supply. Moreover, no one's talking about Chaebol reforms. Despite its success, Samsung has faced some challenges in recent years, including a major corruption scandal that led to the impeachment and removal of former South Korean President Park Geun-hye. The scandal highlighted some of the risks associated with the Chaebol system in South Korea, including the close ties between government officials and business leaders. But corruption isn't the only problem haunting the nation. There are no labor laws, and inequality is increasing at a breathtaking proportion. Well, South Korea is known for its civic culture, and for ages they've been working overtime and on weekends with these tech giants. While the country has made significant strides in economic development, labor laws have not kept pace, leading to concerns about worker exploitation. In particular, workers in sectors such as manufacturing and service industries often face long working hours, low pay, and limited job security. Inequality has increased as well. The top 20% of households own 44% of all assets in Korea, including real estate. The income gap between low and high income families has also widened for the first time in 5 years. Last year, the average income per household in Korea was 64.14 million won, up 4.7%. That's 2.89 million won from last year. And we must be mindful of the fact that demographic issues are waiting to hit South Koreans. The demographic crisis. Another significant issue facing South Korea is its rapidly aging population and declining birth rate, which is leading to a shrinking workforce and putting a strain on social welfare programs. South Korea has had the world's lowest fertility rates for 3 consecutive years. Statistics tell that by 2070, it would have the most aged population in the world. Perhaps it appears that it's a self-inflicted wound. Young Koreans don't want to raise children because of bleak job prospects, expensive housing prices, and low social mobility. Gender inequality is also rooted in the patriarchal society, and the marriage rate is down as women don't want to be in a male-dominated society. But as the demographic crisis is here to stay, there's an even bigger crisis that's haunting the country: the debt bomb. South Koreans are facing increasing levels of debt, particularly in the form of student loans and mortgages. As debt is easily accessible in the country, people take it in big amounts, and when they're unable to pay it back, they resort to suicide and other means. In summary, the aging and shrinking population in South Korea is causing recession and stagflation by reducing the number of available workers. And to add to that, rising debts are further spoiling the party. But given all that, the very old neighbour is making things further difficult. It's still threatening to erase South Korea from the map, and because of a rogue North Korea, South Korea is relying on help from Japan and the US. Recently, South Korea increased its defence spending by 5%, which means that minimum resources would be allocated for public spending and social welfare. Well, there's only one thing to say after all this: there's a hidden crisis in the making, and people will bear the brunt. It's no hidden fact that South Korea made rapid progress in this and the last century, even better than its not-so-cool neighbour. The South invested in education and focused on industrial growth. This was largely possible by chaebols like Samsung, LG and Hyundai. But now, these very giants have dominated the market and have hampered skilled jobs. On top of that, the aging population of South Korea and debt crisis are making the future of South Korea difficult. It's high time that the government reforms these chaebols and works on increasing the population to stabilise the economy and demography. But before that, something needs to be done about rogue North Korea, because a nuke might end this all, and we'd not be talking about the economy in that case. South Korea, it's time to wake up. So, if you like our content, please feel free to like and subscribe to our channel, and do let us know in the comments what you think about the Korean economic crisis.